All right. So, let's see. Today's date is Friday, April 8th, 2022. And this is the episode of Voz Divisiones One-on-Ones podcast slash one-on-one stuff. I don't know what to call it yet. We're going to get an intro by the end of all these, I promise. But yeah, we're here with Jess Garcia, the amazing Jess Garcia. I guess we could just start by passing it over to you, Jess. Can you just give everyone a little intro about who you are, what you do, and yeah, just a quick intro.
Okay, so my name is Jess, and Bobby and I are from the same hometown, Robstown, Texas. And I lived in Austin for almost 10 years and was working with adjudicated youth, and it was an alternative to incarceration. And then I sold everything and moved to Vietnam by myself and taught English for about a year and a half. And, you know, full-time there is only 20 hours a week. And so I traveled through a lot of Southeast Asia. Then I came back home, and I was going to go to South America, but that didn't work out. Bobby, I think I'm just going on and on.
No, that's good.
Probably fix this. So what do I do now? Honestly, this season has been quite interesting. I've had some challenges with my health, and so I did start a life coaching business, and so that's something that I'm working on. More than anything, I love to empower people and to, you know, support people and help people, and so basically I feel like that's been my life.
That's good. That's a great summary. Like, I think those work out better than me trying to like sum stuff up, because I feel like I'd miss some things. But so yeah, so I guess I want to take it back to. So you said you graduated from Robstown?
Yes, I graduated from Robstown and in '99, and I remember my parents both did not graduate from high school, and so it was something very different for me. And just, I mean, a lot of times, Bobby, you know this, there's a lack of resources, and a lot of times the things that we're doing, it's the first time that it's been done in our families. So for me, I didn't know anything about college, and so I only applied to one college. And thankfully, I received a full paid academic scholarship, which was, now that I look at it, you know, hindsight, like, I know that that was life-changing, because I was able to get an education, and for me at the time, that was huge. Like, it was something that I knew that I wanted to do, and I didn't know what I was going to do, because, again, it was the first time that someone in our family had gone to college, and but I felt that much more of a push and motivation, and I guess animo, right? Like, you want to do better, to do more, and to bring that, I don't know, like, that's the way I live my life. It's like, I want to be my best self, and in the process, like, I want to make sure that I share that with the people that I know and the people from my community and from my family. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And so then you, I mean, since those days, like since when you were growing up, you had that drive to want to do more and try, want to see more. Like, what drove you to want to see more? Did you were you raised right there on Ruben Chavez?
I was, and so it's really interesting, because I think that you and I were raised right behind each other. Like, your grandmother and my grandmother.
Yeah.
Like, literally, like the
alleyway
was, yeah, the Callejon was what separated our grandma's houses, and I spent a lot of my childhood with my grandparents, and my parents, you know, my mother was working at a factory, my father was working at a refinery, and so they're very hard workers, and that work ethic has always been there with them. But again, like, for me, I didn't even speak English when I went to school. because my grandparents were older, and they, they spoke Spanish mostly. And so the beginning of my life was mostly spent with my grandmother at the secondhand store, because that's where she volunteered, and helping my grandfather, like going to throw, like, I mean, some of the things I look back on, I'm like, wow, as a child, like, it was an adventure, right?
Yeah.
But looking back, I'm like, wow, I'm thankful for those experiences, because I feel that they shaped who I am in a lot of ways. I feel that my grandmother, like, she volunteered. She honestly didn't really even go to the, it was like, she did it out of her heart, and so it was this place of helping others and empowering others. And so I remember people coming in and her always, doing what she could to give back to the community. And so that's something that I was, and again, like, my parents were always we always had people coming to live with us when they needed help, or, my parents helping them with what we had. Again, it was, my parents worked very hard, but, I mean, it's humble beginnings, right?
Mm-hmm.
But as far as, like, traveling and stuff, and seeing the world, that's very outside of anything I've ever known. My parents don't really travel. My parents do go see my brother in California, so that's been great, because I feel like that's given them the opportunity to do those things. But other than that, I mean, I lived in Austin for almost 10 years, and I can count in one hand how many times they went out there. And most of the times it was because I was sick, and they wanted to go support me. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's just this stirring inside of me. Like, I knew there was more than what I had experienced here. Like, I wanted to see more. I wanted to do more. I wanted to see as many cultures. Like, ever since I was a little kid, I remember being in 4th grade, and they asked me, what do you want to be when you grow up? And my response was, I want to be a civil rights activist, right? Like, in 4th grade.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, and I feel like that movement inside of me has always been there. And I've had this passion for, like, South Africa and, like, just the world. And so, yeah, I mean, I think it's always been there. And it just stirred in me. It's kind of interesting, but you probably don't know this about me. But in my early adulthood, I thought I was going to be a missionary. And so the first time I ever went out of the country was actually on a mission trip to England. And that was the first time. But when I went to Vietnam, it was just, I think for me, I've had multiple sclerosis for almost 17 years, or for 17 years plus. And it was this recognizing that I knew that the disease had progressed. And I went to see my friend who was my age and, had the disease for the same amount of time, but he had been sent home already, and with pretty much like with hospice. And so I went to go see him, and here's this man that I had met, we both had MS when we met, and he was, his progressed very rapidly. And so I said to his wife, like, I want to see the world, and no one's going to take me. Like, and I, at that time, already knew, again, like, I was having some issues, like, from time to time, and just cognitively into my physical body. Like, my left side had gotten a lot weaker, and there had been a lot of challenges for me throughout the years. But again, I'm just like, you just get up and you keep pushing. I think that I'm thankful also, Bobby, like, where we're from, it's this knowing, like, hey, adelante, like, get up, because that's the way I was raised. It was like, no, get up. So, I'm very thankful for that, because I feel like that and God's grace, honestly, man, like, there's no explanation. But yeah, I went to see my friend. Here's this man who had done 5 tours in Iraq, and now he's laying in bed and he can no longer talk. And he's having a really tough time. And I just told his wife, I said, I want to see the world. And she said, then you should. It's something that they'd always wanted to do. But his illness progressed so rapidly. And I don't know, that was the last push that I needed. And again, I was doing something I loved, but I knew I had to do something for myself. And I had never even lived outside of Texas, with the exception of working in California for a summer, helping like unaccompanied minors. And so, yeah, I just sold everything and I moved to Vietnam. I wanted to go somewhere where I was going to be completely out of my comfort zone. And I speak fluent Spanish, so I knew if I went to South America, like I'd be fine, But I mean, if I went to Vietnam, on the other side of the world, literally, I was going to be completely like just, out of my comfort zone and just stripped bare and just completely vulnerable and ready for whatever was to come. And I got to tell you, the experience was absolutely amazing.
It sounds there's a few things, right? First off, also shout out to your bro Jesse. Jesse was a really good friend of mine, and we actually spent a lot of time back when we were younger and went to school together. But on the note of what, in regards to how you were raised, right? You were talking about things that you were doing and your grandparents and your parents, and I kept thinking of two themes, right? Like work ethic and philanthropy. Like working and philanthropy, right? Like hard work and philanthropy. And then that, like what you were talking about being from Robstown, that like, yeah, we just like, all right, handle your business. Like, okay, boom, boom, boom. Like that, because we're just, I don't know, raised like that to just like toughen up in so many different ways, whether it be mental, emotional, any kind of way. Just like, all right. Because my mom would always tell me that too. And she still to this day, there were times where I was, man, like, especially like, I mean, years ago, there was like, I don't know if I'm capable of handling all this, or if I can do this, and then I would like just like get a little down, and she'd be like, okay, yeah, you already remember who you are, get your ass up, like, come on, get up, okay, that's enough of that. But and I'm like, all right, cool. But so there's a couple of things, right, with your story, with your journey, is like that feeling of like, I'm gonna do this, I want to do this, that tenacity, like, and then adventure and the unknown, jumping into the unknown, which is one of the biggest things I feel like, especially people like from where we're from, struggle with. The unknown, the beyond the city limits. Actually, a lot of people, that is the world. The city limits, Corpus at the most, maybe San Antonio, and then it's like, after that, you're like out in the world, which feels so scary to everybody down there. Like a lot of us, like especially growing up, I remember thinking like, oh no, I would never be able to see like New York City or like this and that. Like I would see it on TV at the most. Like I could never, don't even think about it, because the world is scary and things can happen. And of course, yeah, but same thing with the community that we're living in. Like anywhere we're at, like
absolutely,
it's right there in your backyard too. So it's like, but like a whole on the other side of the world is different. While you're dealing with issues with like health issues and things like that. So I guess a couple of things are, for one, can we go back and you tell us a little bit more about MS, what it is, and when you first started to deal with it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was diagnosed when I was 23. Multiple sclerosis is an autoimmune disease, and it's your immune system starts to attack your central nervous system. And so the central nervous system is the brain and the spinal cord. So whenever the immune system attacks the central nervous system, I mean, if you think about it, that is responsible for everything we do. I mean, that's including seeing, talking, thinking, walking, eating. Everything you can imagine that we do is connected to our nervous system. And so that's what happened. And so, like, for me, for example, if I get a cold or I get, sick, well, okay, I get sick. Yes, I get those symptoms. However, my immune system is on hyperdrive. So because of that, it starts to attack my nervous system, which is my brain and my spinal cord, and then that causes swelling in my brain or in my spinal cord, depending on, you know, on where it attacks at that time. And this can be any kind of stress. Like if it's, I mean, any kind of stress, mental, physical, emotional stress causes, you know, the MS to start to act up. So I have to be very mindful and try to be very grounded. And then also, like, with, you know, I mean, during this time of the pandemic, it has been quite the experience, because the reality is I've spent the last 2 years pretty much secluded in a lot of ways. I mean, I see my mom, you know, I see my family, and from time to time I'll see friends, but it's, you know, it's like they have to make sure that they're okay. You know, I had a friend who came to visit from Victoria. She like got tested, you know, went through the whole like, you know, she's actually a biologist, so she got tested or whatever and made sure she was okay. But so it's been really difficult in that way. But yeah, that's what it is. And so throughout the years, the first time that I experienced symptoms, I was in college and my toe was numb. And I was like, well, that's weird. Like, well, this was like going on for weeks. So I went to the nurse there at the university, and they brought, or the doctor, and they had all these people come, and they were like poking at me, and they're like, oh, it's probably nerves, you know, it's probably, you know, it's probably like you're nervous, you know, whatever, anxiety. And I was like, okay, you know, so I guess, okay, that's fine. Well, as time progressed during that semester, I had like 2 jobs, and I was going to school full time, and I had to keep my grades up so I could keep my scholarship. And so one of the jobs I had, I was a server at a restaurant, at a Mexican restaurant, and it was very fast paced. And I woke up one day, actually, let me rewind, right? I went to a doctor, and I started to tell her some of the things that were going on. And so some of the things were, I was having vertigo. Again, my toe was numb. I was just different things that were going on at the time. And she said, this is out of my league, but I'm going to send you to a neurologist. And I said, okay, you know, she was a nurse practitioner, and I really appreciated that, because nobody else could, you know, help me. So she recommended I go see a neurologist. Did I go? No. I was in college. I was, again, going to school full time, working. Like, I was just hustling. I was making it happen, you know? Yeah. And I think that, too, like, where we're from, like, yes, it's important to do those things, but it's also important to take care of ourselves. And I think that sometimes that takes the back burner. And so I went to work one day, and I had woken up that day, and I was fine. But as the day progressed, my neck started to get stiff, almost like when you go to sleep and you wake up with like your neck sore. But I woke up fine. And then as the day progressed, it was like my neck was stiffening, and I was like, oh, that's weird. But I still went to work. And my manager saw me, and she said, what's wrong with your neck? So I started telling her everything I'd been going through, and she said, you need to, how this woman, I guess her son had some issues with his nervous system, and she said, you need to go to the neurologist, you have to go, you know that you can end up, you know, paralyzed, this is your nervous system. So I went to the neurologist, and he did a very good job in, I had the test done, I had to have a lumbar puncture, so they had to take fluid from my spinal cord. I went to like a lot of MRIs, based on the symptoms that I had. And, you know, also at that time, again, my brain was pretty sharp at the time. And what I recognize now is that when I was having finals is when things would start to get really bad. And I had a friend who was helping me, you know, study. And then she would ask me the question, I couldn't respond. Like, you could tell me something right now and then ask me, and I couldn't remember what was just said. And so it was hard for me, like, retrieve information, for me to remember even, like, what you said a second ago. And so just all those things. And the neurologist said, you know, you have MS. Like, this is what I believe you have. And sent me to a second opinion in Houston. And they said that, you know, he had done a very good job in catching it. But as time progressed, like, at that time, there were only injections. And so they just gave me, like, literature and, like, read it and choose what you want, you know. So I picked one that was a non-interferon, which it wouldn't affect all my immune system. And I remember I'm just that way. I am very independent, like, I think that's something else that I've learned this year, right? I think in our community, a lot of times, you know, you have a lot of walls, you know, and you're trying to protect yourself. And there's not a lot of vulnerability. We know how to help others, but we don't. For me, I had a hard time letting others help me. And so I remember they came and trained me to inject myself, and the nurse came to my apartment and she said, is anybody going to join us? And I said, no, it's just me. Here I am, my early 20s, right? I just got this diagnosis and still I'm doing it by myself. So yeah, I was doing that, but it wasn't working. And so they said, you need to get on something else. I tried 3 different injection, drugs, and the first one didn't work. The second one made me really sick. The third one, same thing. So until they came out with a pill, I'm talking a lot, Bobby.
No, go
they
ahead.
They came out with a pill, and so I started taking the pill until I went to Vietnam, because with the medication, like, it helps, but it doesn't make you feel better. It just keeps you from getting worse, right? So it prolongs the time in between your relapses, in between the times of swelling in your brain. And so I got on that medication, but I had to be checked every 3 to 6 months to make sure that I didn't get the virus that it could cause, that the medication could cause, right? Like, it gives this virus legs, and it can attack your brain and either make you really sick or kill you. And so, yeah, just kind of dealing with that as well. So when I went to Vietnam, I weaned myself off of it, and I haven't taken anything since. And that was in 2016, 2017. Here recently, my neurologist was adamant, like, I need to get on something because it's progressed even more. And I can see that, but they even gave me new medication. But I don't know, when I got it, and I just did research, and I'm like, man, like, this is going to really weaken my immune system in the middle of, like, we're still in a pandemic. I mean, and I just wasn't ready to do that. So, however, I saw that you were eating better. And so I want to say thank you for putting that out there. I said, you know what, I need to give myself a fighting chance. I had all these books that I had for years, so I started to do research. And so since then, I have cut, like, dairy and gluten, and just really worked on an anti-inflammatory diet. And so adding, like, turmeric and ginger into, my diet, and only having, like fish and chicken and vegetables. And so, yeah, I'm doing that now. And I have seen a difference. I have been feeling better, but every day is different for me with EMS. Like, even today, I made it a point to where I didn't do anything until I spoke to you, because it's like my threshold is not, I don't have a very big threshold at this point in my life. So if I want to do something and do it wholeheartedly, I have to make sure that I still have the energy and the capacity, mentally and physically and emotionally, right? So, like, I have to make sure that I take care of myself. And so, yeah, I have to, I don't know, it's kind of interesting. It's like you're getting to know yourself at every I mean, that's for all of us, right? But like having to get to know yourself and what your body can do. It's like your mind wants to do certain things that your body can't, or your mind can't. Like, you know, it's just different every day. So, and sometimes it's, yeah, cognitively, like, so in the past, like some of my first relapses, I was numb from like all my left side was numb. I would try, if I tried to pick something up off the floor, I would literally fall over. Like there was swelling at the base of my brain, which is, you know, the part of your brain that's for, you know, for balance. And so, yeah, I mean, it just, again, like depends on where the swelling is at the time. There's been times where I've had a hard time with vision, because it does attack the optic nerve as well. There's times where I feel a lot of pressure in my ribs and it's hard to breathe or to stand too long. And then it's just really attacked my left side. So it's like, it's much weaker. So yeah, I mean, it's really interesting, right? Because if you see me, I mean, you really can't tell. I mean, unless I tell you all these things.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way I try to live my life. But, you know, it's been challenging. I mean, it's been really challenging these past couple of years, and there have been a lot of changes in my life. I had a really bad relapse when I came back from Vietnam. I wanted to go to South America, but I got really sick when I came back. And so, yeah, just a lot happened, and all the money I had saved kind of was gone pretty quickly. And so anyways, but yeah, I mean, and then a door opened here, and I was able to, like, just do, again, at that time, it was hard to even stand for too long. It was hard to breathe, but I still went to work. I was substituting, and then just doors opened, and so I stayed here, and I became a behavior interventionist and was working at elementary school, and but just my body couldn't keep up. And so I went through another really bad relapse, and I had to walk away from that job. And so yeah, it's been very different for me these past couple of years.
What? But wow, that's really
I don't know if you even knew any of that, but yeah, I mean, I haven't had like a 9-to-5 job since 2020, like when 2020 finished.
Now, do you think so you said there's triggers, right? There's stressors, like it's mostly stress, like stress that causes the triggering of like inflammation and stuff.
Right.
Okay. And now as far as how proactive you're being, right, in regards to nutrition, with the turmeric, with anti-inflammatory diet, right, or choices. I don't really like to call things diets. Like it's more like just lifestyle change, because diet sounds temporary, but when you're just changing your lifestyle, like that's just who you are now. Like, and
I agree.
You know, and I love the fact I actually just gave up dairy. Recently, I cut out, which was my kryptonite, cheese. So
okay.
I was like, okay, if I want to take this serious, and I switched all my creamers. I don't drink milk. I went to almond milk, but then that was still causing inflammation. For me, it was so now I'm on oat. I drink oat milk, which I love, and I have oat milk creamer. They have it at Walmart and everything else. Oh my god, it's so good. They have it at Starbucks, everything else too. So my coffee has oat milk only. Really big difference. Also with breads, with carbs, with I don't do any white breads. I don't do nothing fried, of course.
Same.
No red meats. I think it's super rare that I'll eat something with red meat. I think I ate like a burger or something the other day, and then I was just like, okay, yeah, we're going back to like chicken and turkey.
Same.
Lots of greens, lots of leafy vegetables, frozen ones. My smoothies are just jam packed with berries and antioxidants, you know, like giving your body weapons, right? Helping, and not only that, I started to start my days with body meditations, like feeling my body
Mm.
from head to toe, like okay, and feeling like the love for my body, like feeling it from the inside out, like from my head to my toes, and I was just like get all the toxins out. Okay, what can I do to strengthen my body? What can I do to like express love to my body? You know what I
I
mean?
love
Like
that.
through
Yeah.
water, through patience, through kindness, through because there's when you think about the neurotransmitters, right? There's different things, right? There's serotonin, there's dopamine, oxytocin, and I'm forgetting the other one, but like oxytocin, when the feeling you get when you like show love to others, when you express compassion and things like that. Dopamine is more of like the quick hit, right? Pleasure center, and serotonin is more of the relaxing feeling of peace. And so trying to keep those going and make sure like your body feels at ease, because yeah, like you were talking about, stress amps you up and
Mm-hmm.
stuff, and lifestyle choices, surroundings, environments.
Yes.
And do you
Yeah.
think so you went to Vietnam. Vietnam is a big jump. For one, I want to know how you went about it. Like, I love to know, like I'm the kind of person that likes to know details. Like, who did you call? What was your first step to like even get to Vietnam? How did you find a place to live? And then yeah, like how did you take that leap? And then the language stuff. Like, I mean, what was your plans before you went?
It's really interesting the way it happened. It kind of like it. It just happened so organically. It's kind of interesting. I remember one day this is this was the day I decided, right? So one day, one of my friends, I was living in Austin, and she's like, "Hey, do you want to go on a yoga hike?" And I was like, "Okay, yeah, sure, that sounds cool, right?" So we went on this hike. And I just remember, like, for me, like, I was just talking to God. I was just like, what's next for me? Like, just kind of, like, putting it out there. And then that night when I went home, I had two roommates. When I went home, I was like, I'm really nervous. So I was watching PBS. And,
I love PBS.
and I know, like, I love it, right? And so it was this kind of documentary or this film about this woman who was, she was into, like, making her own movies and that sort of thing, but she was Vietnamese American. And she decided to go back to her home country where her parents or grandparents were from. And so it took me on this, journey and to Vietnam. And I was like, wow, that's cool. Never in my life had I ever thought about, oh, I want to go to Vietnam. Like, I'd be lying if I said that. But I was watching this documentary or this film, and I was like, wow, that's cool. Like, just her story, and I was very intrigued. So before I went to sleep that night, I Googled Vietnam. First time I'd ever done that in my entire life. And so I Googled it, and I fell asleep, like looking up Vietnam. Well, in the middle of the night, I hear a knock at my door, and it's one of my roommates, and she says, "Hey, Jess, are you asleep? Are you awake?" And I said, "Well, I'm awake now." She's like, so she opens the door, she's like, "Hey," because I had already told her I want to go out of the country. I thought I was going to Africa, like a country in Africa, because that's what I'd always wanted. And she says to me, "Jess, Vietnam." And I said, "What?" I was like, "No way, man."
Way.
I had
What?
not told a single soul about this. Like, no way. She says, "Jess, Vietnam." And I said, "What? Like, no, what are you talking about?" I was like, "You're not going to believe this." Like, and so I showed her, like, the last thing I was doing on my phone. And she says, yeah, like, her and her boyfriend at the time had gone to get, like, a pedicure. And she said she was talking to the people, and she was just like, it's Vietnam, like, and, she wanted to go too. And I was like, okay. And I was like, wow. So for me, I was like, that was confirmation, right? Like, this is what's going to happen. Like, this is where I'm supposed to go.
Wow.
So, she was well traveled, she her parents were both like professors. Like that's the background she came from. She had done work in Africa, and so it was going to be three of us that were going, but we had to go through this interview process. Well, the truth is, Bobby, I didn't go to school to be a teacher. I was teaching, and I was actually, supervising teachers before I was ever certified to be a teacher. I know it's crazy, but that's the way my life was. And so we have these pre-interviews with these people. I didn't know all the lingo. Like, I didn't know the jargon. I'm the kind of person, you throw me in somewhere, I just do it. Like, that's just the kind of person I am. But I don't know what it's called. I don't know what techniques they are. And so, but my friends had been to school to be teachers. They had been teachers in, public schools where I'd always been in an alternative setting. So the interviews, they were at night. I already had gone to work all day. My body and my mind were tired, and now I'm having this pre-interview. So my friends got the green light. For sure, they would be okay. Me, he was like, not sure, because I didn't do so well in the interview. I mean, that's just the reality. Because it was like all these like techniques, like questions, and like I was like, oh my gosh, like I don't know, And again, excuse me, like in the evening, it's really hard. Like I'm already, like my brain is spent. Like so. But then when we had the actual interview, the person that interviewed me, he called and he said, I just want to know about you. Like, he was so intrigued by the work that I did at the time. And so I told him and I shared with him. He was just like, wow, that's amazing. And he told me some of his background. And then he just said, so what do you want? He said, do you want to come for the summer? Do you want to come for a year? Like, what kind of contract do you want? And I was like, oh my gosh. Whoa. I went from like, we're not sure if we even want you, to like, what do you want? Like, just tell me what you want.
This is happening.
Oh I said, well, I'll do a year. Like, I'll do a year contract, Yeah. And he's like, okay. He's like, okay, cool. So I got a year contract, and I was like, wow. So I left. So the organization, they were supposed to send someone to pick me up at the airport. They did not. So I got to Vietnam, and there was no one there to pick me up. And so I had to figure things out. And then I had my phone. It didn't work there, so I had to figure that out as well. But finally somebody came. So they put me up in a hotel. For the first, I think it was 2 weeks. They put you up in a hotel so that you can go through the training that you're going to go through, and then also so you can find a place to stay. And so that's what I did. And after that, it was like staying at Airbnbs. And then one of my friends wasn't able to make it to Vietnam. The other one finally came, but I was there by myself for a bit. And we got like Airbnbs like in random places. Like one of the places, the man we stayed like at their home. It was, it was a couple, a man and a woman, an older couple. And so we found out he was Viet Cong, like way back in the day. Yeah. So that was very interesting. But I gotta tell you, the experience was, people were very welcoming. And my friend stayed maybe for a month and a half, and then left. She was a teacher, so she came back to teach, and I stayed by myself. I kept going to different Airbnbs until I found one that it was like, honestly, it was like a beautiful home. So it was like a 3-story house. And it was an Airbnb. So people would come from all over the world. But they gave me a good price because I was going to be like long term. And so a lot of my friends, a lot of my colleagues, people that I worked with, stayed in something called District 1, or like in places where there was a lot of expats. So you had a lot of, English-speaking people. But me, I made sure to stay close to the school I was working at because, again, my health is so unpredictable. And at the time, I'm driving a motorbike, right? That's another story. Like, that one's interesting as well. My sense of direction is horrible. My memory is not very good. So I was like, and then sometimes my health is not that great. So I thought, I need to be somewhere close to where I live so that if I need to go home, So I lived close to where I worked, which meant that I was surrounded by the locals. And so the coffee shops I went to, the places I went to was mostly Vietnamese, speaking people. But it was just so beautiful. And like, I made some really great, friendships, even it's like I don't know, a smile and kindness, like it goes beyond any language, and so, yeah, I mean, I would go to this coffee shop, and it was outside, and they made sure I had something to eat, but they didn't serve food, so they'd go next door and get me food and bring it to me, I mean, they were so sweet. And so, like, they would show me, like, look, like, kind of showing me, like, you can get something from here. And I was like, okay. So once they showed me, I was like, okay. So then I would go and tell them what I wanted, and those people would bring it over
with
to the
like
coffee shop.
With like hand gestures, or like?
Yeah, like just hand gestures. Sometimes, like, I would use my phone to translate, like try to translate, like, yeah, like a lot of it was hand gestures. Like they would kind of like just come this way, kind of like just with their hand, like this way. I'm like, okay, and then like just point, like tell me, like, hey, there's this, I'm like, okay, and yeah, I mean, and then just going there, I met some of the people, and the family that ran the coffee shop. One of the daughters did speak English. I was going to say Spanish. Speak English. So when she was around, I was able to, she would translate for us. But for the most part, it was just, it was just sign, like just with our hands and with our phones. And so, yeah, it was interesting. It was really interesting. And I remember there was a little boy. There was a lot of street children. So, like, these are kids who are living on the street. There was a little boy. I never saw him with a parent, but he would always come. And I think he was, like, intrigued, right? Like, what are you doing? And so, like, he would come, and he didn't speak very much English. And I didn't speak very much Vietnamese. So we would just, like, he would get my phone and take pictures of me and pictures of himself, and we'd kind of laugh and, like, and so, yeah, I mean, he would come and hang out with me at the coffee shop sometimes while I worked. And I think those are the things that are hard, because I wish that I could have communicated with him. I wonder where he's at, I think if he didn't have parents, I would have brought that kid home with me. And I think that's what's hard. But yeah, I mean, so living amongst the locals, like, I wanted to do that. I wanted to make sure that I wasn't living this, like, I could have lived with people, who spoke English, but I was in their country, and I wanted to experience that. And the family I lived with, they lived next door. They owned a pharmaceutical company, so I'm pretty sure they were very, very well off. And so they would even, they try to help me with medication and stuff like that. I was able to go to Singapore to get medication I needed because they didn't have it in Vietnam. It was still cheaper to fly to another country without insurance, get medication, and come back than it is here in the United States.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy? Yeah. So, I mean, it's just really crazy. You're like going to, the doctor, and, it's $50. I'm like, you had all this stuff done. I had an English-speaking person. and they're able to talk to me, and like I'm just like, wow. So yeah, it was just very eye-opening, like what we experience here in our country as opposed to what it's like in other countries, you know. Yeah, so that was also very eye-opening.
Especially that aspect too, right? I just saw that I think it's Mark Cuban who started a company now that pretty much cuts out the middleman and for a lot of prescriptions, medications, and sells them like almost like really. I think there's like the percentage being saved on this stuff is crazy stuff that's like in the hundreds or if not thousands of dollars. You getting it for like $100 or under $100, like things that are like $30 to get, they charge you $3,000, like that big of a margin for some medications, which is ridiculous. Like, you know, when life and death becomes a financial choice, like a financial issue, like that is the issue. That's when I'm like, I first caught wind of that, and I was like, whoa, what? And that we're the only country. I think we're the only country that really is like that. But I thought that was.
And for me, like right now, I mean, when I walked away from my job, and again, I mean, I've always worked, you know. When I had to walk away from my job here, well, that meant I lost my insurance, and so I don't have insurance right now, and so and I haven't been able to get any help. You know, I had a 401k, and so the lady, you know, I was contacted. So I'm going through this whole process, and she said, well, because you were, you know, responsible, and you know, because she said, well, how have you been living? I said, well, I had saved money, you know, but I mean, at this point, it's like, I don't even know, you know. And so she was just like, well, because you were responsible and you saved money, and because you had a 401k, like, you have to waste everything you possess, you know. And I was like, okay, you know. And so it's been a very humbling time for me, because I've always, you know, done things for myself. And I think at this one moment where I needed the help, you know, in our country, it's very difficult to do that. And I think especially, you know, sometimes, like, for the middle class, like, it's very difficult. I think we're very fortunate and blessed in the country that we live in, and I won't, you know, deny that. But I do think it can be very difficult. And so, like, right now, like I said, I'm not insured. And so, you know, I needed medication. I had to do research and find where I could get it for least amount of, you know, money, and where I could pay the least. And I mean, so it's been interesting, to say the least. But I think about those people who don't have, you know, like, for example, I got really sick here, and I still had insurance at the time. I went to a emergency room. My mom took me. At this time, I was having a really tough time. They said, well, we don't have a neurologist here, but if you go to the other emergency room, they'll be able to help you. So we leave that emergency room, which is supposed to be for people with neurological emergencies. Or, I'm sorry, no. We go to the first one, then they send us to the neurological emergency place, and they tell me the same thing. They can't help me. And I'm like, I know what I need. And so the doctor says, we can give you what you need, but, like, we really won't be able to, like, serve you the way you should be served. And so they kind of gave me a little quick fix, and I just thought, I sat there and I thought, you know, I have been very fortunate to have had the opportunities and to have, like, the know-how to get what I need, the resources that I need. But I looked around, and it broke my heart to think that all these people around me may not have someone to advocate for them, and may not know how to advocate for themselves. And so I think that that's what I really had a hard time with here in South Texas, is, like, the lack of resources, and especially when it comes to health, like healthcare. So I had to get driven to Austin, you know, again, very fortunate that I had a way to get myself to Austin. But not everybody has that opportunity here and those options. And so a lot of times, like where we're from, if you're diagnosed with cancer or you're diagnosed with some, illness that's serious, these people have to drive to San Antonio, have to drive to Houston. They have to drive outside of. So, I have friends and family members who are like trying to find the funds. And that's something that's really good about our community is that people will give from what they have, and they'll say, oh, you need to get over there. Here's $10. I'll give you $10. I'll give you $10. And as a community, people come together and help as a family, as, friends and stuff. But I just think about all the people that don't have that, and don't have the resources. And I think that's been really hard here. Like, it's different when this is all but when you've gone away, like you've lived in, other places. Me, I've lived in other places. And then you come back. You see things in a way that you didn't see them before because you didn't have the experiences that you had before.
Yeah.
And then it's like, where do you start? Like, there's so much need and you want to help, but it's overwhelming sometimes, So I think that what you do is amazing. I feel like you give a voice, to people that a lot of times feel like they don't have a voice. And I think for me, like, just, I'm here and I try to make sure that no matter who I come across, even people who are walking, and I know that they're, really struggling, I always say hi. Hey, how's it going? Because I want them to know that they're seen and that they matter.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just feel like there's so much more that I would like to do,
Yeah, and it's one of those things. It's like you care like so much, and the community is so near and dear to us, and the people are so near and dear to us, and a lot of people that you do see walking the streets and stuff are people we went to school with, or our friends, or our family's family, and these are not just random people, because even then still, but these are people we know, and people we know their loved ones, and then when it comes to problems or things that are, could use some fixing and adjusting down there, a lot of it is structural, right? A lot of it is like a whole revamp of like this entire like system of doing things. So that's where it starts to feel almost insurmountable, right? Like a big mountain. Like how could little old me even begin to wrap my head around this, right? I got to get myself in order. But
it's like, where do you even begin? Like,
and
where do you begin? And something that, this lady, she was like a mentor to me, Miss Connie, she would always tell me, because I would say to her, like, where do I begin? And she would just say, you do what you can right where you are. Like the people that are right there, right where you are. And I'm like, okay, because it was just too much, like, but it's like, I don't know. I feel like you and I are very similar. You have this mentality, well, okay, yeah, I can do that. But like you said, it's the system itself. Like, how do we not just like catch up like here and there, but like, how do we make a serious impact, not just for today, but for like generations to come?
Yes, exactly. How do we create like actual systems? Like, how do we put different systems in place, or how do we improve on the ones that are there in a sustainable way, right? In a lasting way. That's the thing. But I think right now, like things like this, like conversations like this, I think a lot of it at least has to start with this, right? Because like looking back on like AA, things like that, it's like what or any kind of group when it comes to change or whatever. It's like start with it first. You gotta have to acknowledge the problem, right? Acknowledge there's an issue. Acknowledge there's room for improvement. Let's say that. Say if you don't want to say, oh, I don't have an issue. Oh, our city's good. Or oh, hey, we're okay, cool. Then we're not saying we're saying there's room for improvement, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So let's go with that terminology. So like once you notice there's room for improvement, then we start to hear from the voices being affected by these systems, right? And
Right.
by these environments. And it's like, okay, I feel like the conversation that we're having like right now too is part of that. So it's like, okay, let's start getting this information together directly from the people. Let's start getting various stories, journeys, and input. Um,
Yeah, because
and
you have
see
to
where it
start
goes.
somewhere.
And yeah, and see where it goes. Let's collect the data, right? And not just numbers. We're not talking just statistics. How many people live here? How many people are elderly? How many people have this condition and that condition? No, we're not just talking about quantitative data. We're talking about qualitative too. How are people feeling? What are the? I want to hear from the actual people, right? Like, let's start getting that data. Let's start getting the voices of the people. And then
Just right now when you said that, it kind of brought to remembrance also, and something I hadn't shared was, I don't know if I think you were living here because you were a kid. We had a chemical spill here in our city. Do you remember that?
Yeah, the oxy?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, because MS is an environmental disease is the way that they've described it. So like, it's not genetic, it's not something that's passed on, it's environmental. And so for me, I just feel like, and there was other, medical issues I had as a child. I had seizures from the time I was 5 to 12 years old. And then, we went through this chemical spill. And I just think, we're from this community that, again, right, there's a lot of poverty. And so this company comes in and they say, hey, everybody gets $5,000 and we called it a day. But I think that the effects of that, for me, I feel like it could have very well been that had an effect on me, and so, yeah, I just think about our community. I don't know. I just kind of brought to remembrance when we were talking about that, like just some of the things you were saying. But
yeah,
again, just kind of putting it out there and saying, hey, we're here. And these people, like being like kind of like what I was saying, like being a voice for people who, maybe haven't been heard and haven't been seen or have been overlooked.
Absolutely.
So,
and I think about that, like what you were saying too about the oxy thing, the oxychem thing. Not only that, but also you got a lot of air pollution. You have to calculate all those things, and even like I know my grandpa, he got asbestos from working at one of the refineries, and they weren't giving him the proper safety stuff, so he ended up getting a lawsuit after that or whatever, because they were going around testing all the workers that were working in the area that were using the wrong stuff. And my grandpa, they found asbestos in his lungs from that. But I always just look at the environment, and it's like, okay, and then also take into account a lot of my family's health issues and things like that. And it's like, okay, I can't tell everybody to come move with me. I can tell them, but what's the reality, right? Well, how practical and pragmatic is it to get everybody to move to Minnesota, get around the pines and the fresh air over here, or whatever? But no, if you're in the environment, okay, so then what's next? If you don't have control over the environment, what's next? I was thinking about this too. It's like, if you had to zoom in, keep zooming in. Okay, if you're in this town, you can't move out. You have no way to leave. You have no way in this environment. You can't leave. Okay, what's the next thing you have control over? Let's say your house. You're at your house. But say you don't have control over your house. It's not your house. It's not under your name. You're just staying there. Okay, what's the next thing? Zoom in. The room that you stay in. Okay, but what if you don't stay in a room by yourself? You stay with other people. What if you stay in the sala? Okay, then what's the next thing? Okay, then the bed or the floor, your spot where you sleep on. Maybe that's the thing that you're in charge of. No, because you're still in somebody else's house, whatever. Okay, then what is if you zoom in all the way, what is the one thing you have control of no matter
yourself.
What? And that's it. Yourself.
Yeah.
So you can get up, go, the environment, if the air quality is low, build up your lung capacity. Go out into nature as much as possible. Go out to the beach. Go get the fresh air, or go even outside in your backyard around the leaves. Find ways to strengthen your immune system, like we were talking about. Vitamins, also, right? All kinds of foods, fresh foods, and staying active, and Right? Because at the end of the day, if you're in an environment that you feel is contributing to you in any kind of way, then you got to just do whatever you can internally, like within
Yeah.
yourself, right? That, and just suit up, like armor yourself up, like that's what you could do, right? Armor yourself up and keep working towards that and working towards that, and
Absolutely.
right, and
Absolutely.
so then you were in Vietnam, you left Vietnam, came back, and then you had a flare up. What made you move back, and what have you been doing since? Like the life coaching, just give us like a catch up of like what you've been up to since you've been back, and what you're working on.
Yeah, so I mean, I done some things with you, right? And like starting some, I know you started the nonprofit and just trying to be supportive in that way. And then also, I started a life coaching business. I got, like again, had another flare up. So that kind of, it's like I'm barely getting that going again. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at is getting the life coaching going again. And honestly, like at the core of me, I feel that I want to do more of like motivational speaking. And I'm feeling more of a pull in that direction. So I feel like that's really what I would, that's the direction that I feel that I'm going into, and just doing it here, for the students and the kids here in town. And so I was able to do that at the elementary school. I think you went to as well. I was asked to go when I first got back from Vietnam, and that was amazing. Like, and I had little kids coming up to me and like telling me like I want to do those things, and just giving them that.
Wait, what did you do?
So my old basketball coach had contacted me and said, "Hey, do you mind coming to talk to our students?" Which I think you've done as well. And I was like, absolutely. And she's just like, I mean, a lot of these kids, kind of like we were talking about, a lot of people haven't been out of this area. And so just kind of sharing my story and just like, letting them know that there's so much to experience, and like, to just kind of take that step, right? Take that leap.
Yes.
And to stay open to the possibilities, and to know how much, there is to experience outside of just this. And letting them know, hey, by the way, I was sitting right where you're sitting right now. Like, I grew up down the street. And for them, I mean, they're little kids, and they're just like, what? And I was like, yeah. So like some of them are like, oh, like I live right here. And and I'm just like, yeah. And so just this, I want them to know, like, hey, look, if I could do these things, you can do these things. You can do even more, And so being that, just being that voice and letting them know, like, that there's options, and that there's, that they can achieve whatever they want to achieve, that their dreams are theirs, and that but then also, like, kind of like what we were talking about when you said, well, had you ever traveled? Had you ever done this as a kid? And like, a lot of times we don't know what we don't know, right? And so when you're in this environment, like, this is all you know. And so I feel like people like you, people like me, people, even if people who are still living here, but have had, maybe they started their own business, maybe they're a nurse or a doctor, whatever the case is, that they're able to reach out to the youth to inform them that there are options for them, that there's more, and that they can live an amazing life, and, just kind of show them these different options, like maybe outside of anything that they've known or seen,
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. I like it's so crazy how much just a little bit of travel makes such a big difference, or just even
Oh,
stepping out of your
absolutely.
comfort zone. Like even like um back before I even moved out of Ross, or when I was still little, like real little, living right behind y'all.
Mm-hmm.
My uncle, who was like the youngest at the time to go to UT at the time, my uncle Tony, he was at Austin going to UT. I'm just a kid, like 10 years old,
Mm-hmm.
and he would come and visit. And when he would visit, he would bring me sketches on architecture,
Mm.
star charts, books, all these things that made me think of the world beyond, like the greater stuff. So I'm there and I'm flipping through all this stuff, and I'm just thinking of some other worlds, like all these other things, and my mind went on adventures from all this stuff. So and then he came back with that stuff, like he would bring that back from like if I like to think about it like what is that one, like Magellan or somebody, like an old explorer, and then they come back with like what they found on their journey, and they say, whoa, look at all this, like this is like of a world beyond. And
Yes.
so I feel like that's really great what you're doing, and I'm so excited to see what you have going on with the life coaching. With the Robstown Arts Committee, as soon as I mean, we get going on that here around the corner, um, and I'm really excited to just be there, support whatever you have going on. I think there's so many more things that we can unpack, and I look forward to like way more conversations between us. And what so I guess I want to wrap it with asking you what you would say to anyone with MS, anyone like going through what you went through, that has, maybe any kind of feelings about something, or something that only like you would know. And then what would you just say to anyone with that, or going through any difficulties, or mentally or emotionally? And also, what would you say to someone who's scared of the unknown right now, who is scared of taking a leap, whether it be booking a trip, whether it be stepping outside of their comfort zone, whether it be going off to college or moving to Austin, or just start something new, or begin some kind of philanthropy business or in town? What would you say to them?
Okay, so I would say for people who have just gotten a diagnosis, right? Like it could be MS, it could be anything. I think about that, and then I think about, well, I'll start with that. I think for me, the way that I've tried to live my life is this understanding that this moment is all that I have. Tomorrow's not promised, right? For any of us, like that's all of our realities. And so this moment is what I have. And so really trying to stay present in your present and really enjoy what is. Because I think sometimes we get so lost in, tomorrow and, or even the past. And because of that, we're not present in today. And yes, there's going to be difficult times and there's going to be challenging times. But just finding the beauty in the day, right? Like there's days that are very challenging for me and very difficult, but I try my best, and not just try, but do it, to see, like, to notice even the smallest of things, whether it's the birds in the air, I mean, it's just, man, I'm able to see that. I'm able to experience and like to be thankful, to be in a place of gratitude for the things that you can do and the things that you can experience and the good things that are happening. Because the reality is that life is not perfect. Life is challenging and can be messy and difficult. It's not perfect, but it's beautiful. It's still beautiful. And so I think really embracing the beauty of the day, despite all the craziness, but to really dig within yourself, and also to make sure that you're loving yourself, because yes, it's important to love others, but something that I've learned is to really make sure that you're taking care of and loving yourself. And in doing that, you know, it's going to be difficult sometimes, like I said, but I know that you'll be okay. You know, at the end of the day, as long as there's like this peace with you, and I don't know, I mean, that's the way that I try to live my life. And for me, my faith, is also very important. And just having those conversations, with God,
Mm-hmm.
but just, again, just staying grounded and being real with yourself and being kind to yourself, so, and really just living in a place of gratitude.
Oh, that's perfect. That's perfect.
And as far as someone who is afraid of the unknown, it's kind of interesting because for many people, the unknown is scary. For me, the known is scary. Like, for me, for most people, right, traveling or doing the unknown is scary. For me, being in one place and being around all these people that I know and that I know care about me, like, that is out of my comfort zone. So these past 2 years have been very much out of my comfort zone. But in the process of us stepping out of our comfort zone, I feel like we learn a lot about ourselves, and we get to know parts of ourselves that we didn't even know. And I think that happens when you travel. It's this amazing experience. And I think, it's okay to start off slow and to start off small. Everyone is different, and so you have to do what's right for you. For me, I'm that kind of person. I like to dive in, and that's just who I am. But do what's right for you. Be true to you, but also, give yourself a chance to dream. Like, I think about children, right? And they dream with such a purity and such a way that anything is possible, and like their imaginations just kind of run wild. And I think that if we could, remember that, and remember who we are, and our dreams and our ambitions, and if you maybe have lost that you give yourself some time and give yourself some space to dream again. It doesn't matter what your situation. Like, the reality is, if we woke up today, there's still hope for something. We're still here. And so, yeah, I mean, just keep pushing forward. Keep pushing forward and make it happen. Don't be afraid. I mean, I don't know. I always think about, I will say this, when I went to Vietnam, people said to me, oh my gosh, aren't you afraid? What if you go over there and you get sick and you're really far away and you're alone? And my response to that was, I am more afraid of waking up one day and not being able to do things, and to think, oh man, I should have gone, I should have done this, and not being able to at that time. And so, again, this is the only moment we have. It's like, really dig into yourself. What do you really want? What do you really want? What really matters to you? What makes you feel alive, and do it, and sometimes that is very uncomfortable, and many times people are not going to understand, and that's okay. But you have to be true to yourself, and you have to take those leaps.